God is warning you, and the warning is not loud, dramatic, or obvious. It does not always come as a crisis or a sudden collapse. Instead, it comes quietly through constant tension in your body, restless nights, shallow breathing, racing thoughts, unexplained fatigue, and a heart that never truly rests. Stress is silently destroying your body, and many people mistake this destruction as normal life pressure. But it is not normal, and it is not harmless. Stress was never meant to live inside you permanently. A moment of stress can sharpen focus, but prolonged stress slowly poisons the system God designed with precision and care. When you live in constant survival mode, your body believes danger is always present. Your heart works harder than it should. Your immune system weakens. Your muscles tighten. Your digestion suffers. Your mind becomes foggy. Over time, your body begins to break down, not because it is weak, but because it is overwhelmed. Stress is not just an emotion you feel when life becomes difficult. It is a biological force that moves through your entire body, altering how you function at the deepest level. Many people believe stress exists only in the mind, as worry, pressure, or anxiety. But that belief is dangerous because it minimizes what is actually happening beneath the surface. Stress is a full-body experience. When it becomes chronic, it silently rewires your nervous system, strains your organs, weakens your defenses, and accelerates physical decline in ways that are often invisible until serious damage has already occurred. When stress enters your life, your body immediately responds as if it is facing a threat. This response is ancient, designed to protect you from danger. Hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system to increase alertness, speed up your heart, tighten your muscles, and sharpen your focus. For short periods, this response is useful. But when stress becomes constant, the body never returns to a state of safety. The alarm stays on. The danger signal never shuts off. Over time, the same system meant to protect you becomes the very thing that harms you. Your heart is one of the first organs to suffer. Chronic stress keeps your heart rate elevated and your blood pressure high, forcing your cardiovascular system to work harder than it was designed to. The heart does not complain loudly at first. It adapts. It pushes through. But prolonged strain weakens the heart muscle, damages blood vessels, and increases the risk of heart disease, strokes, and sudden cardiac events. Many people are shocked when health issues appear because they never felt sick, only stressed. Your immune system also pays a heavy price. Stress suppresses immune function, making your body less capable of fighting infections, healing wounds, and defending itself against disease. You may notice that you get sick more often, recover more slowly, or feel constantly run down. This is not bad luck. It is the result of a system overwhelmed by constant internal pressure. The body cannot prioritize healing when it believes it is always under attack. Digestion is another silent victim of stress. When your body is in survival mode, digestion becomes a low priority. Blood flow is diverted away from the stomach and intestines, leading to bloating, acid reflux, stomach pain, and irregular digestion. Over time, stress can disrupt gut health, increase inflammation, and even contribute to chronic digestive disorders. What many people treat with medication is often rooted in unaddressed stress that has been living in the body for years. Your muscles and joints absorb stress in ways that are easy to ignore but difficult to reverse. Constant tension causes muscles to remain tight, restricting movement and reducing blood flow. This leads to chronic pain in the neck, shoulders, lower back, and jaw. Headaches become frequent. Sleep becomes uncomfortable. The body stiffens not because it is aging, but because it is bracing for impact that never comes. Stress trains the body to stay guarded, and guarded bodies eventually break down. The brain is deeply affected as well. Chronic stress alters brain chemistry and structure, impairing memory, focus, and emotional regulation. You may struggle to concentrate, forget simple things, or feel mentally exhausted even after rest. Stress shrinks areas of the brain responsible for rational thinking, while strengthening fear-based responses. This is why stressed people often feel reactive, overwhelmed, and unable to think clearly. It is not a lack of discipline. It is a biological consequence. Sleep, which is meant to restore the body, becomes fragmented and shallow under stress. The mind refuses to slow down. The body remains tense. Even when you sleep, you do not truly rest. Over time, sleep deprivation compounds stress, creating a cycle that accelerates physical and mental decline. Without deep rest, the body cannot repair tissues, regulate hormones, or reset the nervous system. Hormonal balance is also disrupted by chronic stress. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, remains elevated for long periods, interfering with metabolism, weight regulation, reproductive health, and energy levels. Many people struggle with unexplained weight gain, fatigue, or hormonal issues without realizing stress is the underlying cause. The body, overwhelmed by constant pressure, begins to malfunction in areas that seem unrelated. Perhaps most dangerous of all is how quietly this destruction happens. Stress rarely announces itself as a medical emergency. It whispers. It accumulates. It normalizes itself. People adapt to exhaustion, pain, anxiety, and discomfort until dysfunction feels normal. They say, "This is just life," without realizing their body is slowly paying the price for unrelenting pressure. What makes stress so destructive is not just its intensity, but its persistence. A body that never feels safe cannot heal. A nervous system that never relaxes cannot restore balance. Over time, stress shortens lifespan, reduces quality of life, and steals vitality long before old age arrives. It is not dramatic, but it is deadly in its silence. Understanding stress as a physical destroyer changes how seriously it must be taken. It is not a weakness to acknowledge stress. It is wisdom. The body does not break down without reason. Every symptom is a message. Every ache, every illness, every wave of exhaustion is communication from a system that has been pushed too far for too long. Stress is not just something you feel. It is something that reshapes you, and if it is not addressed, it will continue its quiet work, slowly dismantling the body from the inside out while you tell yourself to keep going. So stress is often misunderstood as a punishment or a sign of personal failure, but in reality it functions as a warning system built into the human design. It is not meant to crush you, it is meant to alert you. When stress becomes constant, it is not because God is trying to harm you, but because something in your life, your pace, your priorities, or your alignment has drifted away from what your body and spirit can sustain. Stress is the alarm, not the enemy. God communicates in many ways, and one of the quietest yet most powerful ways is through discomfort. Long before collapse happens, the body sends signals. Restlessness, tightness, fatigue, irritability, anxiety, and unease are not random sensations. They are messages. When these signals are ignored, they grow louder. Stress intensifies not because God wants you to suffer, but because He wants you to pay attention before deeper damage occurs. Many people interpret stress as a sign that they must push harder, pray more desperately, or prove their strength. But stress is often a call to slow down, not speed up. It is a divine interruption meant to redirect your path. When life becomes overwhelming, it is often because you are carrying weight you were never meant to carry alone. God did not design the human body to function as a machine without limits. He designed it with rhythms of work and rest, action and stillness, effort and surrender. When stress is ignored, it becomes a form of self-betrayal. You silence the very signals meant to protect you. God warns before He allows consequences, and stress is one of those early warnings. It shows up when boundaries are crossed, when rest is neglected, when fear replaces trust, and when control replaces surrender. Stress exposes imbalance. It reveals where life has become driven by pressure instead of purpose. There is a difference between productive challenge and destructive stress. Productive challenge stretches you temporarily and then allows recovery. Destructive stress traps you in a state of constant urgency. The body never gets the message that it is safe. This is not the life God intends. A life guided by God includes peace even in difficulty, clarity even in uncertainty, and strength that does not rely on constant tension. Stress also reveals misplaced trust. When you rely entirely on your own strength, your nervous system bears the burden of outcomes you cannot control. Worry becomes constant because the mind believes everything depends on you. This level of responsibility is crushing to the body. God never asked you to carry the weight of the future. He asked you to walk in obedience, not obsession. Stress increases when faith decreases. Not because faith magically removes problems, but because trust changes how the body responds to uncertainties. Many people pray for relief while continuing the same patterns that create stress. They ask God to calm their hearts, but refuse to change their pace. They ask for peace while feeding their minds with fear, comparison, and endless demands. Stress persists because the lesson has not been received. God's warning remains active until the alignment is restored. Stress is also a signal that something inside needs to be acknowledged. Suppressed emotions, unresolved grief, unspoken resentment, and ignored exhaustion all accumulate beneath the surface. The body absorbs what the mind avoids. God does not want you to live numb. He wants you aware. Stress forces awareness. It brings buried issues into consciousness because healing cannot happen in denial. Rest is not laziness, it is obedience. When God established rest, He did not do so as a suggestion but as a principle. Ignoring rest is not strength, it is rebellion against design. Stress increases when rest is treated as optional. The body responds with fatigue, irritability, and breakdown because it is being asked to operate outside its limits. God's warning through stress is a reminder that you are human, not infinite. Stress also challenges your identity. When worth is tied to productivity, approval, or achievement, stress becomes constant because there is always more to prove. God's warning is an invitation to return to an identity rooted in being, not doing. When identity is secure, the body relaxes. When identity is fragile, the body stays tense, waiting for the next threat to self-worth. Ignoring stress does not make it go away, it pushes it deeper. Over time, what begins as emotional strain becomes physical illness. God's warnings are merciful because they arrive early. Stress is early. Breakdown is late. Listening now prevents suffering later. The discomfort you feel today is meant to protect your tomorrow. Stress is not a sign that God has abandoned you. It is often a sign that He is calling you back to trust, back to simplicity, back to boundaries, back to rest, back to dependence on Him rather than relentless self-reliance. The warning is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to guide you. When you honor the warning, stress loses its power. When you listen instead of resist, the body begins to soften. The mind begins to clear. The spirit begins to realign. Stress does not need to destroy you if you recognize it for what it is: a signal, a message, a divine nudge saying, "This is not the way you were meant to live." Ignored stress does not remain emotional, it becomes physical, and the transformation is slow enough that many people never notice it happening. At first, stress feels like pressure in the mind, a sense of urgency or constant worry. But when that pressure is not released, the body begins to carry it. God designed the body and mind to work together, not against each other. When the mind refuses to listen, the body eventually speaks louder, often through pain, illness, and exhaustion. The immune system is one of the first systems to weaken under prolonged stress. Stress hormones suppress the body's natural defense mechanisms, making it harder to fight infections and repair damage. This is why people under constant stress catch colds more frequently, feel chronically tired, or take longer to recover from minor illnesses. The body is not failing, it is overwhelmed. Healing requires safety, and stress convinces the body that danger never ends. Stress also damages the heart and circulatory system. Constant tension keeps blood pressure elevated, and the heart working overtime. Over months and years, this increases the risk of heart disease, arrhythmias, and strokes. Many people are shocked by sudden cardiac events because they never felt physically ill. They felt stressed, busy, and pressured, not realizing those feelings were slowly reshaping their cardiovascular health. The digestive system suffers in silence as well. Under stress, digestion slows because the body prioritizes survival over nourishment. This leads to bloating, acid reflux, stomach pain, and irregular bowel movements. Over time, chronic stress disrupts the gut microbiome, weakens nutrient absorption, and increases inflammation. What appears to be a digestive disorder is often the body reacting to years of unrelenting stress. Muscles and joints become storage sites for unresolved tension. Shoulders tighten, necks stiffen, jaws clench, and backs ache. Stress causes muscles to remain contracted, reducing blood flow and oxygen delivery. This creates chronic pain that does not respond well to medication because the root cause is not injury but tension. The body is bracing for threats that never arrive, and that constant readiness slowly breaks it down. The brain changes under stress in ways that affect thinking, memory, and emotional control. Chronic stress shrinks areas responsible for rational decision making while strengthening fear-based responses. This is why stressed individuals often feel anxious, irritable, and mentally exhausted. Focus becomes difficult, decisions feel overwhelming, and small problems feel catastrophic. These are not character flaws, they are physiological changes caused by prolonged stress. Sleep, which is essential for healing, becomes disrupted. Stress keeps the nervous system alert even at night. The body may lie down, but the mind remains active. Shallow sleep prevents full physical and mental restoration, leading to fatigue that compounds stress the next day. Over time, sleep deprivation weakens immunity, worsens mood, and accelerates aging. Hormonal balance is also deeply affected. Elevated cortisol interferes with insulin regulation, weight management, reproductive hormones, and energy levels. Many people struggle with unexplained weight gain, fatigue, or hormonal irregularities without realizing stress is the root cause. The body, stuck in survival mode, sacrifices long-term health for perceived short-term safety. Stress does not only create illness, it accelerates existing vulnerabilities. Genetic predispositions, minor weaknesses, and latent conditions become active under chronic stress. The body can adapt to many challenges, but it cannot thrive when constantly under pressure. What might have remained manageable becomes severe because stress removes the body's ability to self-regulate. Perhaps the most dangerous aspect of stress is how normal it becomes. People adapt to discomfort, pain, and exhaustion. They adjust their expectations downward and call survival normal life. This normalization delays intervention until the damage is advanced. Stress thrives in silence and denial, growing stronger the longer it goes unrecognized. God's design includes signals meant to prevent this outcome. Fatigue, pain, and illness are not betrayals, they are warnings. Ignoring them does not prove strength or faith, it proves disconnection from wisdom. The body is not separate from the spiritual life, it is part of it. Caring for the body is an act of respect for the life entrusted to you. Stress is not merely about having too much to do. It is about carrying too much internally. Two people can face the same circumstances, yet one collapses while the other remains steady. The difference lies in how stress is processed and released. When stress is carried alone, it becomes destructive. When it is acknowledged, shared, and surrendered, its impact is reduced. Unaddressed stress eventually demands attention through illness or crisis. The body will force rest when rest is not chosen. It will create pain when warnings are ignored. This is not punishment, it is protection. The body's breakdown is often an attempt to save itself when gentler signals failed. Stress is silent, patient, and persistent. It does not rush, but it does not stop either. Understanding how deeply it affects the body is not meant to create fear, but awareness. Awareness allows intervention before irreversible damage occurs. When stress is recognized as a serious physical threat, it can be addressed with urgency rather than dismissed as a normal inconvenience. The body does not lie. It reflects what the mind and spirit are carrying. Ignoring stress allows it to continue its quiet work of destruction. Listening to it offers the possibility of healing before the cost becomes too high. Many people pray for relief from stress while unknowingly holding on to burdens that God never intended them to carry. They ask for peace, so yet cling tightly to control. They ask for strength, yet refuse to release responsibility for outcomes that are beyond human power. This internal contradiction creates a constant state of tension, and the body absorbs the cost of that tension. Stress grows not because God is silent, but because surrender is incomplete. There is a deep difference between responsibility and ownership. Responsibility means doing what is within your control with faith and integrity. Ownership means believing everything depends on you. When people cross this line, stress multiplies. The mind becomes hypervigilant, constantly scanning for threats, mistakes, and future disasters. The body mirrors this vigilance by remaining tense, alert, and exhausted. God never asked you to live, as if the world would collapse without your constant effort. Many burdens people carry are inherited expectations, unspoken obligations, and internalized pressure to perform. These burdens feel moral, even spiritual, so they are rarely questioned. People say yes when their bodies are screaming no. They overextend themselves in the name of duty, loyalty, or approval. Over time, the body begins to rebel because it was never designed to sustain endless self-sacrifice without rest or renewal. Stress increases when prayer becomes a transaction rather than a relationship. When people pray only to ask for solutions while refusing transformation, the source of stress remains untouched. God's peace is not simply given to calm a storm, it is cultivated through trust, obedience, and alignment. When someone asks God to remove stress but refuses to release control, the prayer cannot resolve the conflict that exists within. The body responds directly to this inner struggle. Muscles tighten because the mind refuses to let go. Breathing becomes shallow because the nervous system remains in alert mode. Sleep becomes fragmented because the subconscious continues working through unresolved pressure. The body carries what the spirit has not surrendered. This is why no amount of positive thinking can override a life lived in constant internal resistance. Many people confuse endurance with faith. They believe carrying unbearable stress proves strength or devotion, but endurance without rest leads to collapse. God's design includes seasons, limits, and boundaries. Ignoring those boundaries is not obedience, it is pride disguised as responsibility. Stress becomes chronic when humility is replaced with self-reliance. Control is one of the greatest sources of stress. The need to manage every outcome creates constant anxiety, because the world is unpredictable. When trust in God is replaced by the illusion of control, the nervous system never relaxes. The body stays on guard because it believes safety depends on personal vigilance. True trust allows the body to rest even when circumstances are uncertain. Letting go does not mean giving up effort. It means releasing obsession with results. Many people work tirelessly but restlessly. They labor with tension instead of peace. This tension seeps into the body, affecting digestion, heart rhythm, immune function, and hormonal balance. God's warning through stress is a call to change how you carry your work, not necessarily to abandon it. Stress also exposes misplaced identity. When worth is tied to performance, success, or usefulness, stress becomes unavoidable. There is always another standard to meet, another fear of failure to manage. The body lives in a state of constant evaluation, bracing for judgment or disappointment. God's invitation is to anchor identity in His acceptance rather than in human approval. Unreleased burdens accumulate quietly. At first, the body compensates, then it begins to protest. Fatigue deepens, illness becomes frequent, emotional resilience fades. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs that the load has exceeded capacity. God's design includes shared burdens, community, rest, and dependence. Stress increases when life is lived in isolation and self-reliance. Many people resist surrender because they fear losing control will lead to chaos. In reality, the opposite is true. Surrender restores order because it aligns the individual with a power greater than their own. When burdens are released, the body relaxes, breathing deepens, sleep improves. The nervous system begins to reset because it no longer believes survival depends on constant effort. God does not remove stress while allowing destructive patterns to continue. Stress remains as a teacher until the lesson is learned. The lesson is not to stop caring, but to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Peace is not found by managing stress better. It is found by surrendering more fully. The body reflects the state of surrender. When trust increases, tension decreases. When faith deepens, stress loses its grip. This is not abstract spirituality, it is biological reality. The nervous system responds to trust as surely as it responds to fear. Stress that remains unaddressed will continue to shape the body and mind. But stress that is understood as a signal can become the doorway to freedom. Releasing burdens is not a one-time act, it is a daily practice. Each moment of surrender removes weight from the body, allowing it to return to the state of peace it was designed to know. Spiritual disconnection quietly intensifies stress because it removes the inner anchor that stabilizes the mind and body during uncertainty. When a person becomes disconnected from God, even if outwardly religious or spiritually aware, the inner sense of safety begins to erode. Life starts to feel heavier, decisions feel more threatening, and the future feels more dangerous than it actually is. Without spiritual grounding, the nervous system interprets everyday challenges as survival threats, and stress becomes the default state. When the spirit is disconnected, the mind attempts to compensate by controlling outcomes. This creates relentless mental activity, overthinking, planning, worrying, replaying conversations, anticipating worst-case scenarios. The body responds to this mental pressure by staying tense and alert. Muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow. The heart rate remains elevated. Over time, this constant vigilance exhausts the system. What appears to be emotional anxiety is actually a deep biological response to a lack of inner security. Spiritual disconnection often doesn't happen suddenly. It develops gradually as business replaces stillness and productivity replaces presence. People may still pray, but prayer becomes rushed, transactional, or distracted. Silence disappears. Reflection fades. The inner life becomes neglected. Without regular spiritual nourishment, the soul becomes depleted. And a depleted soul cannot regulate stress effectively. The body feels the absence even when the mind rationalizes it away. When connection with God weakens, identity becomes fragile. Instead of being rooted in something eternal, worth becomes tied to performance, approval, success, or control. This creates constant internal pressure because these sources of worth are unstable. The body remains tense because the mind is always defending identity. Stress increases not because life is harder, but because the foundation has shifted from trust to self-maintenance. Spiritual disconnection also removes perspective. Without a sense of divine order, everything feels urgent and overwhelming. Small problems feel catastrophic. Delays feel threatening. Uncertainty feels unbearable. The body reacts accordingly, releasing stress hormones as if danger is imminent. Over time, this chemical imbalance damages organs, disrupts sleep, and weakens immunity. The stress is not caused by circumstances alone, but by the absence of spiritual reassurance that life is held by something greater than the moment. Surrender is the turning point because it restores alignment between the spirit, mind, and body. Surrender does not mean passivity or resignation. It means releasing the illusion that everything depends on personal effort. When surrender occurs, the nervous system receives a signal of safety. The body begins to relax because it no longer believes it must carry the full weight of existence. True surrender shifts the internal posture from resistance to trust. Resistance keeps the body rigid. Trust softens it. When a person genuinely surrenders to God, breathing deepens naturally. Muscles release without effort. Thoughts slow down. Sleep becomes more restorative. These are not imagined effects. They are measurable physiological responses to reduced stress signaling. Surrender also changes how pain and difficulty are processed. Challenges no longer feel like personal failures or threats to survival. They are seen as experiences rather than emergencies. This reframing reduces the intensity of the stress response. The body stops overreacting. because the mind no longer interprets every obstacle as a crisis. Spiritual surrender reconnects a person to meaning. This meaning reduces stress because it gives suffering context. When life feels meaningless, stress becomes unbearable because there is no reason for endurance. But when life is anchored in purpose, the body tolerates difficulty without collapsing. Meaning acts as a buffer against stress, protecting both mental and physical health. When surrender is absent, stress accumulates internally even if life appears successful externally. Many high-achieving individuals experience severe stress-related illnesses because their outer control masks inner disconnections. The body eventually exposes the truth. Surrender restores integrity between inner and outer life, reducing the need for constant self-protection. Spiritual connection also restores rhythm. Time feels less rushed. Rest becomes possible without guilt. Stillness no longer feels uncomfortable. These changes allow the nervous system to recalibrate. Stress hormones decrease. Healing processes resume. The body begins to repair damage caused by prolonged tension. Surrender teaches the body that it is not alone. Loneliness, even in crowded lives, is a powerful stressor. Spiritual connection alleviates existential isolation. When a person feels held by God, the body relaxes because it no longer perceives itself as facing life alone. This sense of support reduces anxiety and improves resilience. Over time, surrendered living transforms stress from a chronic condition into a temporary signal. Stress may still appear, but it no longer dominates. The body responds appropriately and then returns to balance. This flexibility is a sign of health. It reflects a nervous system that trusts rather than fears. Spiritual disconnection keeps the body in a constant state of effort. Surrender allows the body to enter a state of grace. Effort becomes lighter. Work becomes steadier. Rest becomes deeper. The internal war ends, and peace begins to govern the system from within. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It exists alongside uncertainty. It remains during difficulty. It stabilizes the body even when the future is unclear. That is the power of surrender. It does not remove challenges, but it removes the toxic stress response that destroys the body. When spiritual connection is restored, stress loses its authority. The body remembers how to rest. The mind remembers how to trust. The soul remembers its source. And in that alignment, healing becomes possible. Healing begins the moment a person chooses to listen instead of ignore, to respond instead of endure, and to obey instead of resist. Stress does not suddenly disappear when awareness arrives, but its grip weakens because the message has finally been received. The body relaxes when it realizes it no longer has to scream to be heard. Listening is the first act of healing, and it requires humility, honesty, and courage. Listening means paying attention to what the body has been saying all along. Fatigue, pain, anxiety, tension, and restlessness are not inconveniences to suppress. They are information. The body communicates truthfully, without manipulations. When these signals are acknowledged instead of dismissed, stress loses its urgency. The nervous system begins to calm because it no longer feels ignored or threatened. Obedience is often misunderstood as restriction, but in reality it is alignment with design. When a person obeys the limits of the body and the rhythms established by God, stress decreases naturally. Obedience may mean resting when there is pressure to keep going, saying no when expectations demand yes, or slowing down when everything urges speed. These acts feel uncomfortable at first because they challenge ingrained habits, but the body responds with relief. Healing also requires honesty about what is unsustainable. Many people remain stressed because they refuse to admit that their lifestyle, commitments, or internal expectations are harming them. They normalize exhaustion and justify overload. Healing begins when truth replaces denial. The body responds positively to truth because it aligns external actions with internal capacity. Rest is one of the most powerful healing tools, yet it is often the most resisted. Rest is not merely sleep, it is the absence of urgency. It is the permission to pause without guilt. When rest is embraced, the nervous system shifts from survival mode to repair mode. Hormones rebalance. Immune function improves. Mental clarity returns. Rest signals to the body that it is safe. Trust is another critical element of healing. Stress thrives on uncertainty combined with control. Trust reduces stress because it allows the mind to release obsession with outcomes. When trust increases, the body no longer reacts to every unknown as a threat. This shift is gradual but profound. Over time, the stress response becomes less intense and less frequent. Healing is not a single event, but a process of repatterning. The body must unlearn years of tension and fear. This requires patience. Quick fixes rarely work because they do not address the underlying patterns. Healing unfolds as the body experiences consistent safety, rest, and surrender over time. Boundaries play a vital role in healing. Without boundaries, stress continually re-enters the system. Boundaries protect energy, time, and emotional capacity. They prevent overload and preserve balance. The body relaxes when boundaries are honored, because it no longer expects constant intrusion or demand. Listening also involves recognizing emotional needs. Unexpressed emotions create internal pressure. Healing begins when emotions are allowed to exist without judgment. Grief, anger, fear, and sadness are not enemies. They are part of being human. When emotions are acknowledged, the body releases stored tension. Trusting God's timing reduces the chronic urgency that fuels stress. Many people live as if everything must happen immediately or failure will follow. This sense of urgency keeps the body in a constant state of alertness. Trust introduces patience. Patience slows the nervous system and restores balance. Obedience also includes caring for the body as a sacred responsibility. Nourishment, movement, hydration, and sleep are not optional luxuries. They are foundational to healing. When the body is treated with respect, it responds with resilience. Stress decreases because the system is supported rather than depleted. Healing requires letting go of comparison. Comparing your pace, progress, or capacity to others creates unnecessary stress. Every body has unique limits and rhythms. Honoring your own design reduces internal conflict. The body relaxes when it no longer feels pressured to match unrealistic standards. Stillness is another healing force. Silence allows the nervous system to reset. In stillness, the body processes accumulated stress and releases it. Many people avoid stillness because it feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort often reveals how overloaded the system has become. With time, stillness becomes restorative rather than threatening. Healing is reinforced by consistency, not intensity. Small daily choices compound over time. Choosing rest regularly, honoring limits, practicing trust, and maintaining spiritual connection gradually rewire the stress response. The body learns that safety is not temporary but ongoing. Listening, obeying, resting, and trusting work together to create an environment where healing can occur. Stress loses its power when it is no longer ignored, resisted, or misunderstood. The body begins to function as it was designed, responding to challenges without being overwhelmed by them. This path of healing restores balance, not by eliminating difficulty, but by strengthening the internal foundation that supports life. When the foundation is stable, stress no longer destroys. It becomes a signal that guides rather than a force that harms. God's timing and design are often misunderstood, and that misunderstanding becomes a powerful source of stress. Many people believe that peace will come only when everything happens quickly, when prayers are answered immediately, when doors open without delay, and when life aligns with personal timelines. When this does not happen, tension grows. The mind begins to question, the body tightens, and stress takes root. The pressure is not just about waiting, it is about resisting the pace at which God is working. The human body reacts strongly to perceived delay. When expectations are not met, the nervous system interprets uncertainty as danger. The heart rate increases, muscles tense, and thoughts race toward worst-case scenarios. This biological response is intensified when trust in God's timing is weak. Instead of seeing delay as purposeful, the mind sees it as threat, failure, or loss of control. The body absorbs this fear and converts it into chronic stress. God's design does not operate on urgency but on order. When people try to force outcomes before the right time, they move against that order. This creates internal conflict because the body senses misalignment, even when the mind insists on pushing forward. Stress emerges as a warning that something is being rushed, forced, or carried prematurely. The body resists acceleration beyond its capacity because acceleration without readiness leads to breakdown. Many people exhaust themselves trying to arrive early at destinations they are not yet prepared to sustain. They push their bodies, minds, and spirits beyond healthy limits because they believe delay equals denial. This belief creates relentless pressure. Sleep suffers, appetite changes, anxiety increases. The body is not reacting to circumstances alone. It is reacting to the fear that waiting means losing something essential. God's timing includes preparation, not just arrival. During periods of delay, the body and mind are meant to develop resilience, clarity, and strength. When this season is resisted, stress increases because growth is being interrupted. The body feels strained because it is being asked to perform without the internal resources that preparation provides. Trusting God's timing reduces stress because it removes the need to constantly monitor progress. When trust is present, the nervous system calms. The body no longer feels responsible for forcing outcomes. This sense of safety allows muscles to relax, breathing to deepen, and thoughts to slow. Trust communicates to the body that waiting is not dangerous. Impatience is a major contributor to stress because it creates constant dissatisfaction with the present moment. When the mind is always in the future, the body never rests in the now. God's design invites presence. Presence is where peace lives. Stress thrives in imagined futures and unresolved fears, not in the present moment. Trusting timing anchors the body in the now, reducing unnecessary stress responses. God's delays often protect the body from harm it cannot yet see. Arriving too early can expose a person to pressures they are not ready to manage. Stress escalates when the body is placed in environments it cannot yet regulate. What feels like delay may actually be mercy, preserving health and stability until readiness is complete. When people fight God's timing, they often adopt unhealthy coping mechanisms to manage stress. Overworking, emotional numbing, constant distraction, and self-medication become tools to escape discomfort. These behaviors provide temporary relief, but deepen physical and emotional damage. Trust offers a healthier alternative by addressing the root of stress rather than masking its symptoms. God's design includes cycles. Growth, rest, movement, and stillness are all necessary. Stress increases when one cycle dominates the others. Constant striving without rest disrupts balance. Constant waiting without trust creates frustration. When cycles are honored, the body flows more naturally between effort and recovery. Reducing chronic stress, the body responds positively to acceptance. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means acknowledging reality without resistance. When reality is accepted, the nervous system stops fighting what cannot be changed in the moment. This shift reduces cortisol levels and allows healing processes to resume. Trusting God's timing is an act of acceptance that directly benefits physical health. Many people mistake calm obedience for passivity. In reality, it requires strength to remain peaceful while waiting. This strength stabilizes the body. The heart beats more steadily. Digestion improves. Sleep deepens. These are signs that the body no longer perceives waiting as a threat. God's design also accounts for limits. Not everything can happen at once without cost. Stress increases when people demand simultaneous progress in every area of life. Trusting timing allows focus, pacing, and sustainability. The body thrives when demands are sequential rather than overwhelming. Delays refine priorities. Stress often comes from trying to maintain everything at the same intensity. God's timing reveals what truly matters now. When priorities become clear, unnecessary burdens fall away. The body feels lighter because it is no longer carrying excess weight. Waiting with trust teaches the body patience. Patience is not merely a virtue, it is a physiological state. A patient body is a regulated body. A regulated body heals, adapts, and endures without breaking. Stress loses its dominance in a patient system. God's timing restores peace by reminding the body that life is guided, not random. When the body believes life is chaotic, stress remains high. When the body senses order, even unseen order, it relaxes. Faith creates that sense of order. Ultimately, trusting God's timing aligns the body with a rhythm it was designed to follow. Stress diminishes not because problems disappear, but because the internal response changes. The body no longer fights time, it flows with it. And in that alignment, strength returns, peace deepens, and health is preserved.